Here we are in the Latin Quarter near the Odeon Square, and we're right in front of a cafe which is called Procop, which was created by an Italian called Procopio in the 17th century. Claims to be the first cafe in Paris. I doubt that's true because he'd already worked in another cafe, but maybe it's the oldest one that exists that serves coffee. In the period leading up to the French Revolution, it was a meeting place for intellectuals. Voltaire was here, politicians like Robespierre. There's a fun incident that happened. They had to be a little bit careful because the monarchy was still in power, right? And one day Voltaire recounts that he was here having coffee with another philosopher, and they wanted to discuss the question of whether or not God exists, because some of the revolutionaries were atheists and others were Christian believers. But they had to be very careful. So instead of talking about God, they used a code word, which was Monsieur Néant, Mr. Nothingness. And this conversation went on and on and on. More coffee came, more coffee, maybe something a little bit stronger. And Voltaire tells this story that at a table nearby, there was a gentleman who, by the end of a couple of hours, had read his newspaper for maybe the fifth time. And finally he became impatient, and he stood up and came over to Voltaire's table and said, "Excuse me, gentlemen, who is this Mr. Nothingness you're talking about?" And Voltaire says that Voltaire, shot right back, "Oh, he's a police spy. Do you know him?" One of the people who was here, Thomas Jefferson, came, but Ben Franklin came very often. Here is a picture of a sculpture of Benjamin Franklin. Done by the French sculptor Houdon. Ben Franklin, I don't think I need to go into too much detail. He goes back to a Philadelphia family, and he's remembered in the States, I think, pretty much as a politician and a diplomat. He also was a writer of considerable talent and issued one of the first almanacs in American history called Poor Richard's Almanac. And he was quite creative, almost a poet. For instance, he's the one who said there's nothing sure in life except death and taxes. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, etc., etc. And he was here very often. He has a street in Paris named for him, and on the street sign, it's interesting, it says statesman and physicist. He was also a physicist. You may remember that he perfected the lightning rod. He also invented an instrument which I've seen in a museum here in Paris, a glass piano, which is tubes of glass of different heights, and when you strike them with a stick, they make different sounds, and you can even play songs on them. So he was a very versatile person. He was the first, or one of the first, foreigners to be invited to join the French Academy. He died in 1790, and after he died, there was according to several sources that I've consulted, a wake to end all wakes here at the Café Procop Cafe. Just a final word that has nothing to do with the American independence, but with the French Revolution. Just up the street here, there was a building. And when the terror began, there was a doctor. And he felt that this business of chopping off people's heads with an axe was not humane. So he wanted to invent a special instrument that would get the head off at one go so that the person wouldn't suffer. His name was guillotin, from which we get guillotine. And in this house just up the street, he experimented on sheep.